Okay, we're live.
All right, let's call today's Ann Arbor District Library Board of Trustees meeting to order. Do we have attendance?
Yes, we have attendance, and also I'd like to make the note that if you wish to make a public comment, you may leave it on YouTube chat, email us at ask@aadl.org, or leave a voicemail message at 734-327-4245. All comments received will be read at the end of this meeting. Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
All right, roll call vote.
Okay, I'm back. All right.
Sorry about that.
No, that was me getting to it. Okay, Trustee Ekman,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Solomon,
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
All right, motion approved. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. We
I'll
have a-
second.
All right, let's take any discussion, of course. All right, we'll do a roll call vote.
Trustee Ekman,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Solomon,
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
All right. And now we are moving on to citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments? yet?
We have not received any citizen comments at this point in time.
All right, moving on to the financial reports.
Thank you.
Josie.
Thank you very much. The financial reports begin on page 27. And I just want to say that at tax receipts, the library has received $14,601,989, which is 81.6% of the annual budgeted tax receipts of $17,884,000. The fund balance activity, which is outlined here, when you approve the move of the money this evening from the general fund into capital outlay for the purchase of the Parkland building, that will go way down. That line will go way down. So I just want to make sure you understand that. It hasn't yet, but it will when after tonight's vote. The revenue over and under expenditures, the actual cash receipts are at 81.43% of the budget, and actual cash expended is 24.83% of the budget, which is about right for this far into the budget, not quite 4 months. The donations, including the Friends donations, haven't really changed from the last financial statement. You can see the Friends balance is lower because we've been using that money, and there's a resolution this evening that determines exactly where that money, which line that money's going to and out of, so that there's clarity for the Friends if they inquire about that. On the statement of revenues and expenditures, which the same thing, the year-to-date total expenditures, 22.62% of the budget, which I think is the important number to notice here. We're right on track with expenditures and within the budget itself. The governmental funds, which are you can see the general fund, the capital fund, the grants, and the total governmental funds are on page 30, and the balance sheet is on page 31. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Have any questions? No.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Josie. Appreciate that. moving on to the committee reports. And I guess it starts with me, report regarding the library director search committee. As you all were there and recall, we held a special meeting on October 11th where we solely focused on choosing a search firm to assist us with the process. We interviewed the top two candidates and then we deliberated and we went with Bradbury Miller. The executive committee is meeting with Bradbury Miller, I think Wednesday, the 27th, and we're going to sort of get some background and get an idea of what the overall schedule will look like. And then the full board will hold a special meeting on November 1st, which we should be voting on tonight, where we actually basically deliberate on what that timeline will look like, and so that we all have the same expectations and we'll set those together. So that is the report from the search committee. Any questions from anyone on that? No. All right, moving on to budget and finance. Dharma.
So we had, I can't remember what day it was. I think it was last week, Wednesday. We met and we got the audit report from Yo and Yo. And you'll be hearing about that today. And that's all we discussed. Anything else to add from the other people on the finance committee? Cool, that's it.
All right, thank you, Dharma. We're definitely going to talk about the audit in a little bit more detail later. But for now, let's move on to the director's report with Josie.
Thank you. So the first slide, Eli will get it going here, is we have a call for images or videos coming in November, focusing on reaching out to artists and underrepresented communities, offering paid, non-exclusive licensing of digital works and for the gallery screen. So we're really excited about this. And I would just say, I'll make a note here. When we had the reception for the Black Lives Matter mural artist, several came and told me that they had grown up in Ann Arbor and that it had been very difficult for them to find gallery opportunities to show their work in Ann Arbor. And so we heard that, and we're trying to do something more than we have done up to now. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what the results are for this. And Linda Cotton Jeffries was an author who's published by the Fifth Avenue Press, the library's Fifth Avenue Press, 2 books, one in 2018 and one in 2019. She's now releasing a 3rd book, Seeing in the Quiet, with Sunbury Press in Pennsylvania. And it's available online and in local bookstores, and we just want to congratulate her. And this photo of a Kentucky tobacco barn by Glenn Taylor was made with a pinhole camera that Mr. Taylor made in an AADL workshop a few years ago. And this is one image that's currently being shown at the Gutman Gallery, which is on 4th Avenue in town, and a showcase of rising artists called Emerge. And this exhibit is up until November 6th. And you can read more about this in AADL's entertainment blog, Pulp. And these are 2 of our young card holders standing, I can see, in front of the desk at Westgate, where they have their new library cards and they're very happy about them. And you can see the people who love them made comments about them. Their very own library cards. There's not one for that cat bag, but we can do something about that. I think it deserves its own card. Another proud parent writes, I love my child for many reasons, but one of them is that whenever we go into Westgate, she always says, oh, I just love the smell of this library. And another person on this slide said that her 3 best friends are her husband, her dog, and her local library. And how libraries smell, it's so interesting because that changes depending upon when you were a kid. So I love it that there's still a smell to the library. This one is an image from Oslo, a library in Oslo, the Dijkman Bjørvika Library. And someone's talking about how beautiful it is, and it clearly is. And an AADL fan appreciates the architecture of one of the most beautiful libraries in the world, but wrote, not bad, but I can download the complete ghostly catalog from AADL, so I'm going to stay put for now. We're glad that they feel that way. This is a message from Tinkered Toy Box Group, which is a collaboration between Mott Hospital and the WISD. And we provided space for them in the secret lab last weekend. Oh, and over the course of an afternoon, they modified toys to make them more accessible for kids with disabilities. And they plan to donate them in time for the holiday season. So we're really happy about this, and I'm glad to share this with everyone. Here's the slide about shelf service. We still have shelf service. Shelf service was one of the services that COVID brought to the public, and it remains a service. And this commenter is very happy about having a way to dive into a lot of good books that they did not have to come in and pick out for themselves. Oops, there we go. One more. Speaking of t-shirts, Anna, summer patrons have been coming to the summer library all summer and fall to get their summer game prizes, and the t-shirts recently arrived. And these are different people showing off their t-shirt prizes. And we had 1,800 shirts ordered through the summer game this year. So there'll be a lot of these t-shirts around town. So thank everyone for participating in summer game. And that's my report.
Thank you.
Upbeat, positive report tonight.
Yes. Lovely as always.
Yeah.
All right. So the next action item is a resolution to authorize budgeted expenditures for Parkland Plaza purchase. All right. So we just purchased an additional building that we're really excited about. And now we need to consider some purchases. All right. So do we have someone who don't we need to read this on page 32? Read the resolution?
I can read it. Is it 30?
right.
30. Yeah, oh yeah, I see. It's 32. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Got it. Whereas the board approved the purchase of the building and property located at 265 Parkland Plaza in Scioto Township, Michigan, at a special meeting of the board on September 13th, 2021. And whereas the director of the library executed the purchase of the building on September 23rd, 2021, now therefore be it resolved that 1, the board now authorizes the transfer of $3,720,874 of general funds to the capital fund. 2, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
All right, we have a formal motion for what she just read.
I move to.
All right, in a second.
Seconded.
All right, thank you, Anna. Any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, we can proceed with a roll call vote.
Trustee Ackman,
Yes.
trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
trustee Moore,
Yes.
trustee Solomon,
Yes.
trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Now we're moving on to new business. And first up is the Auditors Report. And we have Daniel Beard here from YoVyo, who is going to give us a nice hello, Daniel.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here today, and let us know what we need to know about the Auditors Report.
Okay. All right. Eli, will you bring up the PowerPoint slides?
Yep, and we'll be right up. Here it comes.
Sure.
Let's see. Can you all see that?
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll start on, I guess, slide 2, Eli. Slide 1's
Okay.
just my nice introduction that I just got. To go over the audit, I just want to give kind of a brief framework of what an audit is. So what an audit is we're engaged to come in and give an opinion on the financial statements and to try to bring reasonable assurance to those financial statements to make sure they're an accurate representation of the library to users such as the board and taxpayers. So management is responsible for the fair preparation and the fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles. And the auditors engage to express an opinion by gaining reasonable assurance. And in order of gaining reasonable assurance, we're testing, we're looking at substantive support to test financial statement balances, various account activities, and then we're doing walkthroughs of various internal controls. At an entity level, there's an element of unpredictability. For instance, this year, there's a lot of capital project activity. So we looked at some vendors to make sure that they were legitimate vendors doing business with the library. We also look at IT controls at the entity level, and then we do very significant, very detailed walkthroughs of your key transaction cycles, which would be, payroll, disbursements, the various receipting cycles that are coming in within the organization, as well as journal entries, which have room for management bias and an element of fraud in there potentially. That's the next one, so we can stay right here. Our conclusion for the audit was that we gave you an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. If that is the opinion that you want from us, that's our standard, grade A. The financial statements are an accurate representation of the organization. This slide, we're going to start talking about some of the activities that are presented in the financial statements. So what we're looking at here is general fund only. We're looking at revenues and transfers, which come in at about just over $18 million. We can see that large piece of the pie right there is taxes. Taxes are the lifeline of the library. You have a large section there that's about 97% of the revenues and transfers that came into the library in the current fiscal year. That is only that's only up about $470,000 from the previous year, which we're going to show on the next slide, but we'll stay here for now, Eli. The big driver, of course, of the tax revenues is that property values just continue to go up. City of Ann Arbor alone on your guys' particular tax roll was up about 3.91% from the previous year. Which gets us to that $470,000 increase from the previous year. Obviously, you collect from other local governments, and those were all up across the board as well. But City of Ann Arbor obviously being the biggest piece of that pie. If we go to the next table, Eli, next slide. Yep. Oh, I think. Yep. So this is last year. Again, 93% taxes contributed to 93% of total revenues of that 18 million right there. And then the other items on the side over there, the penal fines, the state aid, and the other last year was up about was up $495,000 from the previous year. And what we had occurring in the previous year was up $495,000 last year as opposed to this year. And what we had last year was we had more grants and contributions running through there than we did in the current year. However, still revenues are up overall. If we go to the next slide, Eli. This right here is a snapshot of your general fund expenditures for the year, including transfers. So we're coming in at just over $16 million. The biggest piece, any organization is the people, the personnel costs. That attributed to about 65% of the overall expenditures for the year, which is relatively flat when we see when we go to the next page, but we can hold on here for a minute. When we go to the next slide, you're going to see that this green slice here is going to be a little bit larger than last year, but that's only because of that large transfer that we had to the capital improvement fund, which kind of skews the visual that we're going to see. Expenses in general were down $1.9 million from the previous year, and again, the large component there would be that $1.5 million transfer, which was just a transfer into the capital improvement fund to fund various capital improvement projects throughout the library. And we also see that everything else pretty much remains the same. You have some down areas in these expenses, but a lot of that is due to COVID and unable to maybe hit in some of those programmatic areas that you would had that not been the case. If we go to the next slide, again, you can see the green Pac-Man grew a little bit here, and the percentage is a little bit different. It's lower, obviously, because that $1.5 million that we see in transfers, which attributed to about 8% here, and you're just under $18 million at that 17.9 up at the top. But overall, those personnel costs, I think the $10,489,000 is only about $10,000 difference from the previous year. So not a big change whatsoever. If we go to the next slide, this is your general fund final budget to actual with difference. So what we can see here is that total revenues, you guys brought in about $336,000 more in revenue than you had budgeted. You also brought in, well, you didn't bring in, but you also spent about $1.7 million less than what you budgeted, which ends up with a $2 million excess down there at the bottom. And that's going to flow into your fund balance, which we can see on the next slide, Eli. Right here. So this is your trending fund balance over the last 5 years. And what we can see here is that the blue is the revenues and the green is the expenditures and transfers. So over the last 5 years, and this is kind of exaggerated a little bit because it's obviously just the top, it's the tips of the charts. We're seeing that revenues are exceeding expenditures year over year. And this year it's exaggerated a little bit because of the various things that we're talking about. You know, some of your expenditures were down because some programs were kind of stalled, or maybe some projects were stalled due to COVID. And then the revenues grew. They didn't grow significantly, but they still grew because taxable values are growing. If we go to the next slide, Eli, I'm sorry. We have our general fund balance. So this right here is the graph of your fund balance year over year. So it's growing over the last 5 years, but then it's really kicking up this year, and it goes back to what we previously mentioned, just revenues. I mean, that's a result of revenues exceeding expenditures year over year. And what we see here is that this presents actually a lot of program opportunities for the library moving forward. So put you guys in a very healthy place financially to actually probably do some things. You have some opportunity that maybe some other libraries in the area that they probably do not have. If you go to the next slide, Eli. So this right here is probably the most important thing that's going to come from the audit, is your internal control and your state compliance. When we go through, we're trying to make sure that there's no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, no management comments, and no findings. And you guys hit the mark on all 4 of those again this year. I've shared with the finance committee for the 2nd year in a row. You also had no journal entries, which is again unheard of. I think I mentioned that last year, and you guys duplicated it this year. We're looking at a lot of things in very close detail. We're testing balances. We're testing internal controls. We're looking at ratios and make sure that nothing seems skewed. I mean, we're doing a very detailed audit of the library, and for you guys to come out of this this year as well as last year as clean as you have is pretty significant, and it speaks volumes to the staff that you have and the competency within the organization. So I mean, kudos here. This is exactly what you want to see, and I love to present this to a board. What's not on this slide is something that I also mentioned to the finance committee, and something to just keep keep on your mind. There's a couple new GASBs, which are accounting standard changes that are going to be necessary to implement in the upcoming year. So just make sure that your finance director and management is aware of that. I know that unfortunately Josie is not going to be here for next year's audit. But as long as the finance committee and the board is aware of that, Eli and everybody else, that those new accounting standards, those new pronouncements, make sure that we stay up to date on those, make sure that we implement those correctly. And then the big change is that the Treasury is making all the libraries change their chart of accounts so that it's uniform throughout all the libraries. It sounds easy, but it's going to be a huge undertaking for the library, of course, which is evidence of the clean audit report. Your library, your people are already they've already investigated this. There's already talks about implementation. It sounds like there's a plan in place, but that's something that we'll be looking at next year as well. And other than that, that's a clean audit. I just want to say thank you to Josie and Eli and their team and Cindy, who I don't know if she's tuned in or whatnot, but thank you to the library as well. I mean, you guys are, you're kicking butt. You're doing a great job.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
so much.
Dan.
Do we have any questions for him? All right, thank you, Daniel. Always good to hear about healthy finances, but that we also know we have some homework to do to stay up to date next year. So thanks for putting us on notice about that. So up next, the action item is the resolution to accept the 2020-21 financial audit. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Anna. A second?
I second.
Any discussion? All right. Let's.
I just want to say great job. That's what I want to say. Is great job to the Ann Arbor library staff, especially Josie and Eli and other people responsible for the finances. And of course, the contractor, the name of which I can never pronounce.
In Cindy Richmond, it's Manor Costerison.
Yes,
Or Manor Costerison. Yes, yes.
Yeah, so great job again.
I'd like to point out when Dan talks about the chart of accounts having to change, Cindy, she's been talking to us about that's going to happen now for several months. It's a big software change and migration. And so because of that, she and Eli are going to take the lead on that. And it's going to be a ton of work. And but we've been talking about what's going to happen about that. And we've reached out to other libraries our size, and everyone knows this is going to be a big deal. And so that is on and we appreciate that Dan's pointing it out to all of you, because it is going to be a lot of work. So,
all right. So we'll expect it and see it coming, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Good.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go forward with a roll call vote.
Trustee Achman,
Yes.
trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
trustee Moore,
Yes.
trustee Solomon,
Yes.
trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
trustee Vanderbroek.
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. Moving on to the next action item, we have a resolution to approve Van Architects PLLC for design services at the Parkland Plaza facility, which is on page 34. Do we have a motion for this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Dharma. You have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Molly. Any discussion?
Lynn is prepared to answer any questions anyone has. You all saw the RFP, you saw his proposal. So in the ephemera packet.
Yes, Lynn, do you want to give us any more background on that?
No, we just wanted to get out in front of this and get moving. We've worked with Van in the past. I met him during the Westgate build out, and very easy to work with. It's a job that's well within their ability, and they were able to fit us in with other projects. So it seemed to work out. And if he's able to take on the work, we'd be happy to work with him.
All right, thank you. I'm excited. I'm ready to get moving, on this project for sure. All right, any other comments? We have a volunteer to read the resolution.
I have a quick comment just to say, I'm really excited to see what this space is going to shape up to be, and I'm glad that it's getting going so quickly. I know that there's a real dearth of contractors right now, so good job of securing somebody so fast. I'm happy to read it. Unless there's anyone else that wants to say anything before I read. Okay.
All right, thank you.
The board resolves as follows. 1, to approve Van Architects PLLC to provide design services for the Parkland Plaza facility not to exceed $68,000. 2, that the expenditure be authorized from the capital fund. 3, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
All right. Let's go forward with the roll call votes.
Okay, trustee Ackman,
Yes.
trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
trustee Moore,
Yes.
trustee Solomon,
Yes.
trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. And the next action item is the resolution to amend the 2021-2022 budget, which is on page 35.
Right.
What were you going to say, Josie?
I was just going to explain it. It's
Yeah.
amending the budget, and what it does is we had Friends money and in the library programming, and then what we're doing is transferring it from library programming to Grants Memorial, where it generally lives, and so that it's showing the way it normally shows. So it's not changing an amount, it's moving it to a different line, and that's what this does. So.
All right. Sounds good. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Molly. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
All right. All right. Any discussion?
Do you need
Okay.
one of us to read it?
Yes. Someone's going to have to read it always, just not necessarily in the appropriate order. All right.
Oh, okay. I can read it if you want.
Session. Do you want to read it for us, Jamie?
I'm happy to read it. I'm like so nervous that I'm going to be called on that I just like want to get it out of the way with one that's in front of me.
Go for it.
Okay. All right. Wait. Okay. Whereas I feel like I'm reading the wrong thing. Whereas the Friends Donation Fund benefiting the AADL began the year with a balance of $25,689. Whereas the director of the library has authorized the use of the remaining funds in the 2021-2022 fiscal year, the board authorizes a budget adjustment. Harlow's getting in trouble in the background to account for the use of remaining funds. The board resolves as follows: to transfer $25,689 from library programming to Grants Memorial expense, but all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Now, do you have any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we will move forward with the roll call vote.
Trustee Ackman,
Yes.
trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
trustee Moore,
Yes.
trustee Solomon,
Yes.
trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Next item, we have a discussion item, and Lynn is going to talk to us again regarding plans to reallocate the balance of funds from 2020-2021 year into the capital fund.
We do have a resolution prepared if we go forward with that this evening. So there is.
Yeah, so the discussion or even the resolution would be to use the balance of last year's funds for the build out for the plaza. It's 2.83 million, I think it was. We don't have a construction budget because we don't have Van's first set of drawings. That's going to kind of dictate our budget. We have talked about it. We've talked with a couple contractors. It's probably the construction budget itself for the build out's probably going to be between $1 and $1.2 million, plus any equipment, furnishes, things like that. So we think that number is a very safe number and would be well under budget. And it would give us the opportunity to do a lot of things we've talked about in the past that we couldn't do at other buildings.
All right. Any questions for Lynn, or do we want to go ahead and read the motion first?
So just to clarify, I have one question. This is just moving the money from the general fund to the capital fund in anticipation of a future construction budget, not allocating this money specifically for Parkland.
Correct. We would still come in front of the board with the construction budget, with any purchases that exceed the threshold. So yes, it's approving the money for the project fund, but we would still have to come back in front of the board for approval to use the funds.
Great.
I have a question. You mentioned like you could do some of the things that you wanted to do other places, but couldn't. Like, could you just kind of give us an example or two of what you mean by that?
Yes, and now it's on the agenda. I think it's the next item. It's just, we've talked about solar, we've talked about geo, we've talked about a lot of things, and some of it, whether it be the building design or the property itself, we haven't been able to do some of the things we've wanted to do. This property really allows all of that. There's quite a bit of space outside of the building. The roof is huge, and I mean, really, it would probably accept solar through most of the roof. I mean, it gives us not just the opportunity to think about library services and how we use the building itself, but how we use the property and how we build that out.
That's definitely exciting, right? Any other comments or questions for Lynn? Do we have a volunteer? We actually do have a resolution on page 36.
Do this one.
Oh, Scott, you're up.
I'm up. I should take a turn here. All right. Whereas AADL realized an increase in net assets in the general fund of $2,083,425 in the fiscal year 2020-2021, and whereas capital funds are needed to allow for the build out and renovation of 265 Parkland Plaza, the board resolves as follows. 1, to authorize an amount equal to the increase in net assets in the general fund for fiscal year 2020 and 2021 to be transferred to the capital fund from the general fund. And 2, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
All right, thank you so much, Scott. Do we have a motion?
I move this resolution.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Dharma. Any further discussion? All right, let's move forward with the roll call vote.
Trustee Ackman,
Yes.
trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
trustee Moore. Trustee Moore.
Sorry, yes.
Sorry. Trustee Solomon,
Yes.
trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
trustee Vanderbroek.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Good.
All right,
Thank
that's
you all very much.
exciting.
Thank
That
you.
is step one, and we can't wait to hear more. But we're going to talk a little bit more about some of what Lynn just brought up about new options. And we've got decarbonizing library operations, and Eli's going to join us as well. All right, let's hear it.
Yeah, so we really wanted to just have this open discussion of decarbonizing our services, of lowering our emissions. And there's a lot of ways we can do this, especially with this new building. And on the build out side, we could go for geothermal right off the bat. Anything we purchase, it could be electric versus combustion. There's a lot of opportunities here. And kind of, I think we're on my end, I'm asking for some direction. You know, do we bring these projects to the board as the capacity allows? Do we make sure we give a green alternative when we're bringing projects in front of the board? And then, or do we really just assume that this is what we want to do and where we want to go, knowing the cost of some of the equipment could be 2 or 3 times higher than a combustion engine? There's some examples for the new space is we're going to need a new delivery truck. There are commercial models now that are all electric. So our library truck that we see all over town, this is library stuff. The next one could be electric. A forklift, we'll need one. Obviously, we'd like to go electric versus propane. This space gives us the opportunity to do some services in-house and do, say, lawn with our current staff, not having to hire anyone. Would we buy an electric lawnmower for that versus a combustion engine? And that's the discussion. We can approach it from a lot of different ways, but really, how does the board want to see these projects presented?
Good question. I, for one, would always like to see the green alternative compared to whatever the traditional proposal would be, because I think we still have to be fiscally responsible, and kind of depends on the item in a case-by-case basis. But what do others think?
I strongly agree. And I think any proposals that you could bring forth, it would be really helpful to know. Like, for example, I know with geothermal, the upfront cost is a lot more, but the efficiency gains are a lot. And so thinking about how many years before you get the return on investment, I think would be helpful, because I think that that's a really compelling way to look at the benefit of the investment, not only for the environment, but financially. And along with that, I would say like expected maintenance cost differences.
Yeah, I mean, I would say absolutely, I would prioritize environmentally friendly choices as much as we possibly can. And like Corinne said, there are some technologies, electric lawnmowers and electric vehicle, like there's a lot of stuff that's been around for a while now. It's not experimental, right? Like it's not like we're adopting something that hasn't been tested in the real world for years now. So some of those things seem kind of like no-brainers to me if they're not significantly more expensive, or that if the carbon imprint is significantly better. Like some of that stuff seems pretty straightforward, whereas others, right, obviously it would be more complicated if it was newer technology or exorbitantly more money. It still might be worth it, but you have to look at the long term. But with a building that we own, that's going to be in the community for generations, hopefully, this is a really exciting opportunity to look forward and make it as sustainable as possible.
Absolutely.
I agree with what everyone has said in terms of defaulting towards electric and lower emissions options. I think one piece that would be helpful in situations where we're dealing with something where the electric version is much newer, like for example, the truck, I think it would be helpful to think about what a delay could look like. Like if we want to give this thing a couple of years to reach, like to work out the kinks, when there might be opportunities to wait, so that we don't have to get stuck for the next 20 years with a sort of greenhouse gas emitting option. I know we're talking, it seems like we're talking about a lot about the Parkland building, but also just in general. And something that has been on my mind lately is about the grounds management and how that all works. It came up for me because I was waiting at my kid's school for the bus, and it was like leaf blower day, and it was so noxious. And I don't know, I've never been at the library when grounds work is happening, but I'm curious what that looks like now. And I'm curious what options might exist for us in the near term to do some less emitting groundskeeping. So that's a question.
Yeah.
Mark at the end.
It's something we've discussed to see, with our properties, there's not a lot of lawn. And so, we use a commercial service, obviously, and they have many accounts. So I'm sure they're heavy gas driven. Our facilities, we don't have a lot of lawn. Our biggest thing is the landscape maintenance, and you don't need big equipment for that. That's very intensive labor, right? So it is a discussion we've had. I don't think on the snow removal side, I don't think there's anything there yet that's going to last the number of hours in that climate. But on the lawn side, there's quite a few options out there. We have been looking at this with the Plaza. For example, there's the commercial lawnmower that has been around that is a reputable company, and it's about double of what a combustion engine is. But it's commercial grade, and you can tell by the unit itself. And speaking with some of the reps, some of the residential models, even though we have smaller grounds, they recommended if either wait or go all in on the commercial unit. Then that was their suggestion, because the residential smaller units they've sold come back with a lot of issues. But there are some products out there that have been tested in the field, and even on the electric vehicle side, there's some big name companies out there that have real miles on roads. So we're within a year of some of these going into production.
I think that's a big part of why we're looking at bringing the groundskeeping in-house as much as we can, as we'll have a lot more flexibility and control over what techniques and fuels and energy is used, because that is often a harder thing. Even if the bid says that they're going to only use electric, you have to be monitoring it to make sure that it actually happens. So I think in some ways we'll be in a lot better position when we'll start with the Plaza, because it's a much easier place to begin with this. But I think there's a lot of potential for us to have assurance that our wishes as far as how the work is being done are being followed when it's being done by staff. It's also really a better return on investment, because there's not a profit in the equation. We're getting more bang for the public dollar.
That's great. So this would be moving all groundskeeping in-house for all of the locations?
It could be, yes. Now we are under contract. We have 2 years left with our contract. But yes, this would give us the time if we can use the Plaza as our test grounds and see what we're capable of and how we can do it. But we're going to have staff there. I don't see any reason to outsource this new property. It's manageable in its size. It's not, we don't have the hill like we do at Traverwood. We don't have the bioswales like we do at Mallett's Creek. It's a very manageable property. This is the perfect time to see what we can do in-house. And I'd see us doing this anyway for the Plaza. I don't see us adding this to our grounds contract.
Awesome. I love this idea of seeing what we can do to take it all over ourselves.
And do you have staff that you feel can do the work already?
Yes, actually, we worked out there last week, and we did some of just the landscape cleanup because it was a vacant building. We spent 3 days out there, and so yes, we have the people in house now. We can talk about staffing when we get close to actually opening the Plaza and having people out there every day. There might need to be the addition of another person just because of the way the schedules work. Right now maintenance comes in at 7 a.m. and they're here till 9 o'clock at night. So it's a pretty tight schedule on a lot of days, but absolutely, I think we have the people currently on our staff that can do this.
I have another question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jamie.
Jamie,
Oh,
did you have?
I thought it was nice that you suggested that the new property be kind of like a testing grounds. Because I think that would like be my one concern, just that we not make this like Cadillac of greenness and then like not really think about it, how it fits into the whole system, or like how what you learn there can be balanced or distributed throughout the system. Because, eventually we like to do something about downtown. So I don't want to like spend a ton of money on this building that like would leave us less for later. I guess I just want it to be kind of a balanced approach.
Absolutely.
I mean, and we are right now, we're looking at the purchase of a forklift. We did not price out a propane powered forklift. We only looked at electric, but we know electric forklifts have been around for 30 years. It's not a new technology. And we did the same when we looked at the commercial mower. We looked at both. A good commercial combustion engine mower is around $10,000 or $12,000. A battery is just over $20,000. And that's kind of where it falls. But with what we do and the amount of lawn we have, we're going to get a lot more life out of any unit we purchase. We're not mowing, 1,000 acres a day. I don't know if we have 10 acres to mow.
Right.
Another thing that I would say that I think has been alluded to is like, especially with HVAC things, I've learned this in my own research. Part of the problem is that usually people are doing a replacement in like kind of an emergency situation, right? They do it when it fails. And when you wait till it fails, at the point that we are in the industry right now, you're going to get what your people like have on the truck. You're not going to really get necessarily the electric powered high efficiency option. And so that's been something I've been thinking about in my own house. They come out here every year and tell us that our gas thing is on its last legs. It's like, you got to get in front of it. So I'm just wondering like how we might think about that too, in terms of like the lifespan, expected lifespan of some of the stuff that we currently have.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that part of it is the where we set the scale on preventative replacement. It's one thing to like when you're building out something new, adding new capacity, it's very easy to make those decisions up front. It's a little bit harder when you're retrofitting something that is working perfectly and deciding when is the right time to replace fluorescents with LEDs as an example. That's mostly an issue at the downtown library, but we've been chipping away at it piece by piece with each renovation. So it's like we have not put in a lot of new fluorescent fixtures. Almost all the fixtures that have gone in, we've been converting as we go. But, a lot of the HVAC systems at the downtown library are not trivial to convert, and in some cases aren't even realistic to convert to other fuels just because of the way that the building is designed. So, and we're also very aware that part of the reason we were in a position to make this investment is because we've been conservative with capital outlays, right? And we want to make sure that we're still in that position. But I think we're hearing what you're telling us, and that you're very interested in moving in this direction and seeing what the cost alternatives are, and seeing that both within our routine preventative replacement and ongoing capital reinvestment, in addition to we will go ahead and get pricing on geothermal and solar at the plaza as the starting point, and we'll bring that as a line item. Right, so that we can see exactly what those are, because they're not required to get the building up and running, but there's also never going to be an easier time to plan for them than as part of this project.
Thank you. I think that's a great summary of our discussion, and it's also very educational every time, we bring this up and talk about, how long some things have been on the market and newer technologies that are a little bit more risky. So I think, is that enough information, Lynn, for you, or did you want more feedback?
No, it is. I guess the only other little caveat to it is there is the threshold of board approval. There's purchases that we make we make the purchase because it's under that threshold, right? And I think the forklift and the riding more, those types of things fall within that. So as we do our research, right, we'll make sure we are doing the best with library funds.
Right. And careful with the newer technology.
Yes.
Been on the market and it's green, and you know what to expect. I think that, it sounds like you've got the go ahead from us.
I just want to say thank you for bringing this up, because I mean, I'm like turning cartwheels. You can't tell, but internally, I think it's awesome.
We are too. We were tired of saying it couldn't be done.
Well, let's do it then.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Let's move on to our next item. I like being chair. I make things move really quickly. You guys notice that?
Yeah.
Tonight. All right. So we have the vote for the special board meeting that I talked about earlier in the summary of the library search committee report. So we want to have a full board special meeting on November 1st at 7 p.m. where we continue basically to set our timeline and put something official in motion, right? To get a big picture of what this overall process will look like for us. Does someone want to read that motion? It should be or do we need? There isn't one.
I don't think there is a motion.
There isn't one.
vote.
I want to officially move regarding what
you
I
just-
just said.
You just have someone else move to do the vote.
Yes.
I move to vote for a special AADL board meeting on Monday, November 1st for the discussion of the library director search.
Excellent. Thank you, Dharma. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Scott. All right. So any discussion? All right. Hearing none, let's move forward with the roll call vote.
Trustee Ackman,
Yes.
trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
trustee Moore,
Yes.
trustee Solomon,
Yes.
trustee Trudeau,
Yes.
trustee Vanderbroek.
Yes.
Excellent. Motion passes. All right.
I'd just like to add that that is staff day. So the library will be closed to the public for staff and service all that day. And all of you are welcome to join us for staff day at any point during the day. We'll be enter through the loading dock door downtown. So.
Okay.
Can you
great.
say it just as a new board member, what is that?
So
look like?
we hold a full day of staff in service where we have workshops. Our now I'm going to go totally blank. Loretta Van Pelt came to speak with us right before COVID on unconscious bias, and at a staff day with everybody in the laboratorium. And the response was overwhelmingly positive to what she had to say and how she went about it. And then she did breakouts through the rest of the day for people to do smaller groups. We've asked Loretta to come back, and she's coming back with all that's happened in that period of time and more things to talk about. We also do breakouts where we have Narcan training for those on staff who were not here when we implemented Narcan training a couple of years ago. So, or for people who want refreshers, we will also be doing what we call lightning rounds, where the staff stand up from each department and talk about what that department does, because we have a lot of new people, and that's always helpful for them to hear that. And Eli, you're welcome to join in if you can tell me what some of the other breakouts are.
Yeah, we also have, there's a session about retirement, because there's often questions about that from some of our staff. There's a session about FMLA and ADA, because that's, again, things that staff have questions about. There are a couple other sort of breakouts about all about the outreach department and all about the archives department in greater depth, because those are things that, again, are very helpful for staff across the organization to know. We have a tools petting zoo so that people can get more familiar with some of the tools. So it's really an opportunity that staff doesn't usually have during a regular week to get more familiar with library services they don't always necessarily interact with. We've been doing it for a long time.
And the people they don't necessarily know. So we mix external training with internal training, and we do it an all-day thing. So it includes lunch. In the afternoon, we acknowledge the number of years people have worked for the library, And I have a little drawing thing I do at the end of the day for the people who made it in the top, I think it's the top 100 of the staff side of a summer game. They get a little, I've done this for years, and so I have fun with this. And that's how we pretty much end the day with that. So.
And this year, it is not mandatory. It is optional for staff that are uncomfortable gathering. That is something that is absolutely no problem. So staff that are not comfortable coming to staff day this year, it's not an issue at all. We do also invite casuals, part-time staff. So it's a good opportunity for the whole staff to get together as they wish to.
And before COVID, we could have up to 150 people or more attend staff day, which was always really good, a number.
And we have 175 registered. So
there you go.
Wow.
So we'll see. Yeah, we're all sort of ready to see each other. So it's nice. So anyway, I wanted to throw that in there here at the end of the meeting that is staff day, and that's what we're doing. So
Thanks for the explanation. That's helpful.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Absolutely. And if you email an agenda, maybe we'll pick a time.
Yep. We can do that.
That's
And we're getting that pulled together. Yep.
all right. That sounds amazing. We are going to move on to citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments at this point?
No citizens' comments have been received today.
It's because I'm so fast. All right. Do we have a motion for an adjournment? Do we have to motion for adjournment, or can I just adjourn? I don't know. Go ahead and
Karen, is there a motion? I actually
No, you
don't
just
think.
adjourned. I don't
Yeah,
think you
the
just
president
adjourn the
can
meeting.
adjourn the
You
meeting.
just adjourn the meeting.
move
Yeah.
for adjournment.
Yeah, you just adjourn it, Corrine. You just do it.
get
All
that
right.
gavel out.
I don't have actually do over there, but that doesn't matter. We are going to adjourn right around 8 o'clock so we can spend time with our families, right?
Enjoy.
And probably play with whatever we took out from the library. All right. See y'all later.
Okay.
Bye.
Enjoy your
Very
evening.
nice.
Bye.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Thank you.